The crystal glasses clinked with a delicate resonance that seemed to float through the dim lighting of Bellini's, the most exclusive Italian restaurant in the city. Every sound felt amplified tonight. The gentle murmur of conversations at nearby tables, the subtle scrape of expensive silverware against imported china, the nearly imperceptible swish of my uniform as I moved between tables. I was exhausted, my feet screaming after an 8-hour shift that was nowhere near finished. "Table 12 needs another bottle of the Barolo," Marco, the head waiter, whispered as he brushed past me, his cologne leaving a trail of sandalwood that momentarily masked the aromas of garlic and basil from the kitchen. I nodded and made my way to the wine cellar, a cool sanctuary beneath the restaurant where I could steal a moment of peace. My fingers trembled slightly as I searched for the vintage on the handwritten labels. I hadn't eaten since breakfast. There simply hadn't been time with the extra shift I'd picked up. Single motherhood didn't leave room for luxuries like regular meals or adequate sleep. The heavy door to the cellar creaked open behind me, startling me from my thoughts. I turned to see Vincent, the newest server, his expression unusually tense in the dim light. "Lena," he whispered, glancing nervously over his shoulder. "You need to be careful with table 12. "What do you mean?" I asked, my fingers still wrapped around the neck of the expensive bottle. "That's Alessio Vitale." The name hung in the air between us, and I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cellar's temperature. Everyone in the city knew that name, even those who pretended not to. The young heir to the Vitale crime family, who had seized control after his father's mysterious death 3 years ago. At 35, he had already cemented his reputation as someone more dangerous than his predecessor, calculating, ruthless, but with a business mind that had expanded their influence beyond the traditional boundaries. "Just don't make eye contact," Vincent added, "and don't spill anything." I swallowed hard, trying to suppress the anxiety bubbling up inside me. "I'll be careful." But as I ascended the stairs, bottle in hand, I felt a strange tingling at the back of my neck, like invisible fingers tracing my spine. Something else nagged at me, a fragmented memory that had been bothering me all evening. The dining room's subdued lighting cast everyone in a golden glow as I approached table 12. I kept my eyes downcast as I'd been taught, but I couldn't help noticing the details at the periphery of my vision. A tailored suit jacket draped carefully over the back of the chair, hands with an understated gold signet ring. The air around the table seemed different somehow. Charged, as though the molecules themselves knew to behave differently in his presence. I presented the bottle with practiced movements, fighting to keep my hands steady. "The 2015 Barolo, sir." That's when I saw it. The subtle discoloration on the cork, almost invisible unless you knew what to look for. My father had worked as a sommelier before the accident that claimed his life, and he'd taught me things that most waitresses never learn. That particular stain meant the wine had been tampered with, likely contaminated. My heart hammered against my ribs. I couldn't serve this. Not to anyone. But especially not to Alessio Vitale, a man whose enemies were rumored to disappear without a trace. "Is there a problem with the wine?" His voice was unexpectedly soft, with a richness that reminded me of the aged balsamic vinegar we reserved for our most valued customers. I made the mistake of looking up. Dark eyes, almost black in the low light, met mine. His face was a study in contrasts. Sharp cheekbones and a strong jaw softened by the hint of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. He was younger than I'd imagined, and devastatingly handsome in a way that made my breath catch. This wasn't the weathered, scowling crime boss of my imagination, but something far more dangerous. I hesitated, acutely aware of the 2 large men seated at the adjacent table who hadn't touched their food, their attention fixed on their boss. "This particular bottle, sir, I wouldn't recommend it." His eyebrows lifted slightly, the only indication of surprise on his otherwise composed face. "And why is that?" I lowered my voice, leaning slightly closer despite every instinct screaming at me to maintain distance. "The cork suggests contamination, sir. It could be harmful." Something flickered in his eyes, a sharpening of focus that made me feel like a butterfly pinned under glass. "What's your name?" "Lena," I answered automatically, then immediately regretted giving my real name. He studied me for a long moment. during which I could hear nothing but the thundering of my pulse in my ears. Then he nodded once. "Bring another bottle, Lena, and have the manager join us." I practically fled to the wine cellar, my mind racing. Had I made a terrible mistake? Should I have kept quiet and let whatever was going to happen, happen? But I couldn't do that. Not with my father's voice in my head, reminding me that some lines couldn't be crossed, even in desperation. When I returned with a new bottle, Mr. Bellini himself was at the table, his usually florid face pale as he spoke in hushed tones with Vitale. Their conversation stopped abruptly as I approached. "This is the waitress I mentioned," Bellini said, nervousness evident in his voice. Vitale's eyes found mine again, holding them with an intensity that made it impossible to look away. "How did you know?" I cleared my throat. "My father was a sommelier. He taught me the signs. And you chose to warn me rather than serve the wine. Why?" The question hung between us, heavy with implication. The truth was simple. I couldn't bear the weight of another death, not even a stranger's, not even someone like him. But saying that seemed too personal, too revealing. "It would be wrong not to," I said finally, the words barely audible. A smile spread across his face then, transforming his features from merely handsome to breathtaking. Integrity, rare in these times. He gestured to the chair across from him. "Join me for a moment, Lena." It wasn't a request. Mr. Bellini's eyes widened, but he stepped back, giving me no choice. I sat stiffly on the edge of the chair, aware of every eye in the restaurant on us. One of Vitale's men had disappeared, probably to investigate the wine. I wondered what would happen to whoever had tampered with it, then quickly decided I didn't want to know. "You have a daughter," Vitale said, the statement catching me off guard. I tensed. "How did you—" "The photograph in your locker. The resemblance is striking." My blood ran cold. He'd been in the staff area? Had been looking at my personal belongings? "Lily," I said, the protective instinct making my voice stronger. "She's 5. And her father?" I hesitated, the familiar pain and anger welling up inside me. "Not in the picture." Vitale nodded as if I'd confirmed something. "You work 2 jobs. This one, and morning shifts at the cafe 3 blocks from your apartment." Now fear sliced through me, sharp and clarifying. He knew where I lived, had been watching me. Why? "What do you want?" I asked, the words escaping before I could stop them. His smile remained, but his eyes turned serious. "What I want, Lena Taylor, is for you to tell me why Antonio Gallo would want me dead." The name hit me like a physical blow. Antonio. My ex, Lily's father, who had disappeared shortly after I told him I was pregnant. The man who had promised to marry me, only for me to discover he was already married, to someone connected to one of the city's crime families. I don't, I stammered, my mind reeling. "Don't insult my intelligence," Vitale said, his voice still soft, but with an edge that hadn't been there before. "The cork was marked with Gallo's signature method, and you recognized it immediately. I haven't seen or heard from Antonio in over 5 years," I said, truth lending strength to my words. I didn't know the tampering was his style. I only knew the wine was dangerous. Vitale studied me for what felt like an eternity, his gaze penetrating as if he could see through layers of skin and bone to the truth beneath. Whatever he saw seemed to satisfy him, because he leaned back slightly, the tension in his shoulders easing. "It seems we have a common enemy, then." Before I could respond, the restaurant door burst open with a crash that made everyone jump. 3 men entered, their movements purposeful, hands suspiciously positioned beneath their jackets. The room went silent. Vitale sighed, as if merely inconvenienced by the intrusion. "It appears Antonio is impatient tonight." He stood smoothly, placing a hand on my shoulder that felt like a brand through the thin fabric of my uniform. "Stay behind me, Lena." Everything happened so quickly after that. His bodyguards moved with practiced efficiency, creating a barrier between us and the intruders. Vitale's grip on my arm was firm as he guided me toward the kitchen, his body shielding mine. I heard shouts, the sound of breaking glass, a woman's scream cut short. "My car is in the alley," he said, his mouth close to my ear as we moved through the kitchen's chaos. "We need to leave. Now." "I can't," I protested, digging in my heels. My shift. His laugh was genuine, if incredulous. Your shift is the least of your concerns. Gallows men saw you with me. They'll assume you're under my protection. But I'm not. Vitale paused, his dark eyes glittering in the harsh fluorescent lighting of the kitchen. You are now. Outside, the night air was crisp with the first hint of autumn, a shocking contrast to the overheated kitchen. A sleek black car idled in the alley, its engine a low purr that matched the adrenaline humming through my veins. I need to get my daughter, I said, panic rising as the reality of the situation sank in. She's with my neighbor. If they know where I live, already taken care of, he said, opening the car door for me. My men are bringing her to my estate as we speak. Horror and gratitude warred within me. You had no right. I had every right, he countered, his voice hardening for the first time. You saved my life tonight, Lena. That makes you and your daughter my responsibility. As the car pulled away from the curb, I caught a glimpse of flames beginning to lick the back of the restaurant. Whatever evidence had been there would soon be ash, but the consequences of my split-second decision were only beginning to unfold. I had warned the Mafia boss not to drink the wine, never imagining that my simple act of conscience would irreversibly entangle my fate with his. As the city lights blurred beyond the tinted windows, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had escaped one cage only to willingly enter another, one lined with gold and promise. But a cage nonetheless. The car's interior smelled of expensive leather and a subtle cologne that reminded me of cedar and spice. We rode in silence, the city lights passing in streaks of neon and shadow. My hands wouldn't stop trembling, and I clasped them tightly in my lap to hide their betrayal. You're afraid, Alessio observed, his voice cutting through the quiet hum of the engine. I didn't bother denying it. You've taken my daughter without my permission and are bringing me to an unknown location after a shootout. Should I be anything else? A hint of a smile touched his lips. Honest, too. Refreshing. He reached into an interior compartment and withdrew a phone, offering it to me. Call your neighbor. Confirm that Lily is safe. I took it with shaking fingers, half expecting some sort of trick. The phone was sleek and obviously expensive, unlocked and ready for use. I dialed Mrs. Winter's number, each ring stretching my nerves tighter. Hello? Her voice was breathless with excitement rather than fear. Mrs. Winters, it's Lena. Is Lily okay? Oh, Lena, dear. Yes, she's perfectly fine. Such nice men came, very polite, showed me proper identification. Said there was some sort of gas leak in your building. They explained everything. I closed my eyes, relief washing through me. Can I speak to Lily? There was a rustling. Then my daughter's voice filled the line. Mommy, are we having a sleepover at the castle? The nice man said we are. Castle. Of course that's how a 5-year-old would describe Vitale's estate. Yes, sweetheart. I'll see you very soon, okay? Be good for Mrs. Winters. After I hung up, Alessio was watching me with an unreadable expression. You thought I would harm her. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. I don't know you. I only know your reputation, and what reputation is that exactly? I swallowed hard. That you're dangerous. That people who cross you disappear. People who betray me, he corrected, his tone conversational, as if we were discussing the weather. People who steal from me, people who try to poison me. He leaned forward slightly. Tell me, Lena, have you done any of those things? No. Then you have nothing to fear from me. The car turned onto a private road, lined with ancient oak trees, whose branches formed a canopy overhead. In the distance, lights appeared, warm and golden against the night sky. As we drew closer, the castle came into view. It wasn't actually a castle, but it might as well have been. A sprawling estate of stone and glass perched on a hillside overlooking the city, surrounded by meticulous gardens and a high-security wall. Guards stood at attention as our car passed through ornate iron gates. I felt a tightening in my chest, the physical manifestation of the understanding that I was now completely in this man's world, subject to his rules and whims. The car stopped at the entrance, where more men in dark suits waited. One opened my door, offering a hand that I ignored as I stepped out, determined to maintain what little autonomy I had left. Mommy. Lily's voice cut through the night air. and I turned to see her racing down the grand steps, her dark curls bouncing, still in her pajamas with the unicorn print she loved so much. I dropped to my knees, gathering her into my arms, breathing in her familiar scent of baby shampoo and the strawberry candy Mrs. Winters always gave her. "Hey, baby," I whispered against her hair, fighting back tears. "It's so big here," she exclaimed, pulling back to look at me with wide, excited eyes. "There's a swimming pool inside the house, and a movie theater, and the nice lady gave me hot chocolate with real marshmallows." Over her shoulder, I saw a woman standing in the doorway, elegant in a simple black dress, her silver hair swept into a chignon. She nodded respectfully to Alessio before disappearing back inside. "That's Rosa," Alessio said, coming to stand beside us. "She's been with my family since I was younger than Lily. She'll show you to your rooms." Lily's attention shifted to him, and I felt a surge of protectiveness as her innocent eyes met those of a man who had ordered who knows how many deaths. But to my surprise, Alessio crouched down to her level, his expression softening in a way I wouldn't have believed possible if I hadn't seen it myself. "Hello, Lily," he said, his voice gentle. "I'm Alessio. Thank you for being my guest tonight." She studied him with the direct, unfiltered gaze of childhood. "Are you the king of the castle?" He laughed, the sound startlingly genuine. "Something like that. I hope you'll be comfortable here." "Do you have any kids?" she asked, and I winced at her directness. A shadow passed over his face so quickly I almost missed it. "No, I don't." "That's sad," she declared with 5-year-old certainty. "Everyone should have kids. They make you happy when you're lonely." I placed my hands on her shoulders, gently pulling her back. "Lily, honey, let's not bother Mr. Vitale with questions." "She's not bothering me," he said, rising to his full height again, his eyes lingering on my daughter's face, with an expression I couldn't quite read. Children speak truths adults have forgotten how to say. Inside, the estate was even more impressive than its exterior suggested. Soaring ceilings, priceless art, furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. Rosa appeared silently to guide us through the labyrinth of hallways to a suite of rooms larger than our entire apartment. "These will be your quarters," she said, her accent a melodic lilt. "There are clothes in the wardrobe that should fit both of you. If you need anything, press the intercom button beside the bed." After she left, Lily immediately began exploring, gasping with delight at the enormous bathroom with its jetted tub, the walk-in closet filled with clothing in both our sizes, and the balcony that overlooked gardens illuminated by subtle landscape lighting. "Mommy, look! These are prettier than princess dresses." She was running her small hands over a silk dress in a shade of emerald that would match my eyes perfectly. I shivered, unsettled by the thought of Alessio Vitale selecting clothing for me, knowing my size, anticipating my presence here. "Lily, come sit with me for a minute," I said, patting the edge of the bed. She bounded over, her energy undiminished despite the late hour. "We're going to stay here for a little while, but this isn't our home, okay? We're just visiting." "Because of the gas leak?" she asked, her brow furrowing in confusion. I hesitated, unsure how to explain our situation without frightening her. "Something like that. The important thing is that we're together, and we're safe. I like it here," she declared, bouncing slightly on the plush mattress. "It's like the fairy tales you read me." If only she knew that in the original versions of those fairy tales, the endings weren't always happy. The beautiful castles often housed monsters, and the glittering promises frequently concealed deadly traps. After I'd tucked Lily into the massive 4-poster bed, I explored our gilded prison more thoroughly. The doors to the hallway were unlocked, but I had no doubt that guards were stationed nearby. The balcony doors opened freely to the night air, but we were on the 3rd floor with no way down. Beautiful, comfortable, and completely inescapable. A soft knock at the door made me jump. I opened it to find Rosa holding a silver tray with a steaming cup. "Chamomile tea," she said, offering it to me. "It helps with sleep. The master would like to speak with you once you're settled." "And if I decline?" I asked, taking the cup despite myself. Rosa's expression remained impassive. "He rarely asks twice, Miss Taylor." After she left, I sipped the tea, its warmth spreading through my chest, I checked on Lily, who was already fast asleep, her dark lashes casting shadows on her cheeks in the dim light. She looked so much like Antonio, it sometimes hurt to look at her. The same olive skin and Cupid's bow lips. But her spirit was entirely her own, resilient and joyful despite the circumstances of her young life. I changed into a simple dress I found in the wardrobe, navy blue, modest but beautifully made. The fact that it fit perfectly was another reminder of how thoroughly Alessio had investigated me. Rosa was waiting in the hallway when I emerged. She led me through the silent house to a different wing, stopping before a heavy wooden door. "His study," she said, knocking softly before opening it for me. The room was exactly what I'd expect from someone like Alessio Vitale. Dark wood, leather-bound books, a massive desk that emphasized the power differential between whoever sat behind it and anyone who sat before it. A fire crackled in a stone fireplace, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Alessio stood by a window, gazing out at the night, a tumbler of amber liquid in his hand. He'd removed his jacket and tie, the top buttons of his shirt undone to reveal the strong column of his throat. He turned as I entered, his eyes moving over me in a way that made heat rise to my cheeks. "The dress suits you," he said, gesturing to a leather chair near the fire. "Please sit." I remained standing. "I want to know what's happening, why Antonio would want to kill you. Why you've brought us here, when we can leave." He took a measured sip of his drink before answering. "Straight to the point, then. Antonio Gallo works for the Russo family. They've been trying to take over my territory for years. As for why I've brought you here," he set down his glass and moved closer to me. "Antonio abandoned you, yes? Left you pregnant and alone?" I nodded, unsure where this was going. "What you don't know is that he was ordered to seduce you. Your father had information the Russos wanted. Information about certain financial arrangements at the restaurant where he worked before Bellini's. When they discovered he had taught you everything he knew about wine, they assumed he had shared other secrets as well." The room seemed to tilt slightly. "My father was just a sommelier." "Your father was handling money laundering operations for the previous owner. He was very good at it, kept meticulous records. When he refused to give those records to the Russos, they arranged his accident. But they believed he might have told you something, hidden something with you. That's why they sent Antonio." My legs suddenly felt weak, and I sank into the chair he'd offered earlier. "That's not possible. My father was a good man. Good men make bad choices when their families are threatened," Alessio said quietly. "The Russos threatened you. He did what he had to do to keep you safe." Tears burned behind my eyes as pieces of a puzzle I never knew existed fell into place. My father's unexplained income, the late-night phone calls he would take in another room, the way he had insisted on teaching me about wine, making me memorize details most people would never notice. What does this have to do with tonight? With the wine? Alessio sat in the chair opposite mine, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. In the firelight, his face was all planes and shadows. Beautiful in a dangerous way. Antonio never found what he was looking for. When you became pregnant, he reported back to his bosses that you knew nothing useful. They let him walk away, and he went back to his wife. But recently, evidence surfaced suggesting your father may have hidden those records in a very valuable bottle of wine. The Russos believe I have that bottle in my collection. They've been trying to get access to my wine cellar for months. And do you have that bottle? His smile was enigmatic. If I did, it would be worth millions to the right people and extremely dangerous to the wrong ones. So we're what? Hostages? Bargaining chips? You're under my protection, he corrected, his tone hardening. Antonio saw you with me tonight. By now, the Russos know you warned me about the poison. They'll assume you're working with me, that you know something. Your apartment isn't safe. Your workplace isn't safe. Nowhere in this city is safe for you or Lily except here. With me. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the fire. For how long? Until I eliminate the threat. The casual way he referenced murder should have horrified me, but all I felt was a numb acceptance. This was the world I had stumbled into, a world where life and death were business decisions. And then what? I asked, my voice barely audible. He stood, moving to kneel in front of my chair, bringing his face level with mine. This close, I could see flecks of amber in his dark eyes, could smell the whiskey on his breath mingling with his cologne. That depends on you, Lena. You showed loyalty to me tonight, a man you've never met, a man whose reputation frightens you. That kind of integrity is rare. I value it. His hand reached up, brushing a strand of hair from my face with surprising gentleness. I could use someone like you in my organization. I'm a waitress, I said, fighting the urge to lean into his touch. You're much more than that. His eyes held mine, intense and searching. You're a survivor, a protector. You've raised a child alone, worked multiple jobs, kept going when others would have broken. And tonight, you made a split-second decision that saved my life, knowing it might cost you yours. His hand lingered on my cheek, warm against my skin. Stay with me, Lena. Not as a hostage or employee. As something more. The implication hung in the air between us, heavy with possibility and danger. I should have been repulsed. This man was everything I had spent my life avoiding, the embodiment of power used without conscience. Yet there was something in his eyes, a vulnerability at odds with his reputation, that called to something deep within me. I need time, I whispered. He nodded, withdrawing his hand. Of course. But know this. While you're under my roof, you and Lily want for nothing. You'll be treated with respect. No one will touch you without your consent. But you cannot leave. Not until I'm certain you're safe. As he showed me back to my room, his hand resting lightly on the small of my back, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had traded one kind of cage for another. My previous life had been a prison of poverty and exhaustion, of constant struggle and fear. This new one was lined with silk and promises, but no less confining. That night, as I lay beside my peacefully sleeping daughter in a bed more luxurious than any I had ever known, I wondered what my father would think of the choice I had made, or rather, the choice that had been made for me. Had he felt the same way when he became entangled with the underworld? Had he, too, justified his decisions as necessary for survival? The moonlight slipped through a gap in the curtains, casting a silver path across the floor. In the distance, I could hear the soft footsteps of guards patrolling the grounds, protecting us, or ensuring we couldn't escape, perhaps both. Either way, I was now in Alessio Vitale's world, and the rules here were his alone to make and break. Morning arrived with golden light filtering through the curtains and the distant sound of birds. For a moment, disorientation clouded my mind, the unfamiliar softness of the sheets, the vastness of the room. Then reality crashed back. We were in Alessio Vitale's mansion. Captives? Guests? The line seemed increasingly blurred. Lily stirred beside me, her small face peaceful in sleep, unaware of the dangerous currents flowing around us. I brushed a dark curl from her forehead, my heart constricting with fierce love and fear. Whatever happened, I had to protect her. A soft knock at the door announced Rosa's arrival with a breakfast tray. She smiled at Lily, who had awakened and was now bouncing on the bed with the boundless energy of childhood. "The master thought you might prefer to eat in your room this morning," Rosa said, setting down a tray laden with fresh pastries, fruit, and coffee that smelled rich and expensive. "But he hopes you'll join him for lunch in the garden." "We're not leaving this room," I said firmly, even as Lily descended on the pastries with delighted exclamations. Rosa's expression remained impassive. "As you wish. Though I should mention that the east wing, where the indoor pool is located, has been prepared for your daughter's enjoyment. The master thought she might like to swim." "A pool!" Lily squealed, her face lighting up. "Can we go, Mommy? Please?" I sighed, knowing I was outmaneuvered. Denying Lily's simple pleasures because of my own fear seemed cruel. Fine. But just for a little while. After breakfast, I found swimwear for both of us in the wardrobe. Of course, he had thought of everything. Lily's suit was adorned with mermaids, exactly what she would have chosen herself. Mine was a modest one-piece in deep blue that fit perfectly, another unsettling reminder of how much Alessio knew about me. Rosa guided us through the mansion's labyrinthine corridors to a stunning indoor pool surrounded by tropical plants and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the gardens. No one else was present, but I noticed the discreet presence of security cameras and, outside, the shadowy figures of guards patrolling the grounds. While Lily splashed happily in the shallow end, I sat at the edge, letting my feet dangle in the warm water. My mind raced with everything Alessio had told me the night before. My father, involved in money laundering. Antonio, sent to manipulate me. My entire life, it seemed, had been shaped by forces I never knew existed. She swims well for her age. I startled at the voice, turning to find Alessio standing behind me. He was dressed casually, dark jeans and a simple white shirt that somehow looked more expensive than any clothing I'd ever owned. His hair was slightly damp, as if he'd recently showered, and the effect was disconcertingly intimate. "I taught her last summer," I said, fighting the urge to cross my arms over my chest. "At the public pool." He sat beside me, rolling up his pant legs to put his feet in the water. The casual gesture seemed at odds with the dangerous man I knew him to be. "I learned in the ocean," he said, watching Lily attempt a clumsy dog paddle. My father believed if I was afraid of the water, I would be afraid of everything. So he took me to the deepest part and let go. I couldn't hide my horror. "That's terrible." A corner of his mouth lifted in a half-smile. It was effective. I never feared the water again. His eyes shifted to me. "Fear can be overcome, Lena, sometimes by facing it directly." "Is that a threat?" "An observation." His gaze returned to Lily. "She looks like him." The statement caught me off guard. "You know Antonio?" "I make it my business to know my enemies." He worked for the Russos for nearly a decade. Started as muscle, moved up to more specialized tasks, like seducing naive women for information, I said bitterly. Alessio's hand moved to cover mine where it rested on the tile edge of the pool. His touch was warm, his fingers calloused in places I wouldn't have expected from a man who ordered others to do his dirty work. "You weren't naive. You were trusting. There's a difference." I pulled my hand away, uncomfortable with the rush of warmth his touch had triggered. "Why are you being kind to us? The truth, not some line about valuing loyalty or integrity." His expression sobered. "The Russos killed my mother when I was 12. They made my father watch. Then they let him live with that memory for 20 years before they killed him too." He spoke matter-of-factly, but I could sense the deep current of rage beneath his calm surface. "They destroy families, Lena. I won't let them destroy yours, Mr. Alessio." Lily's voice interrupted as she swam clumsily toward us. "Watch me float." To my surprise, he gave her his full attention, applauding her efforts with genuine enthusiasm. When she demanded he join her in the water, I expected a polite refusal. Instead, he excused himself and reappeared minutes later in swimming trunks, diving into the deep end with a grace that spoke of years of practice. I watched, bewildered, as one of the most feared men in the city played with my daughter, teaching her to hold her breath underwater and praising her attempts at swimming strokes. Lily was completely at ease with him, giggling at his jokes and demanding, "Again, again," when he threw her gently into the air. "You're good with her," I said later, as we sat watching Lily explore a collection of pool toys that had mysteriously appeared. "Children are uncomplicated," he replied. "They love freely, fear honestly, and forgive completely. It's only as adults that we learn to corrupt those instincts." "Is that what happened to you?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. Instead of anger, his response was thoughtful. "Perhaps. Or perhaps I simply learned that in a world of wolves, being a sheep is a death sentence." "And what does that make me and Lily? Sheep in your protection?" His eyes met mine, intense and unwavering. "It makes you mine to protect." The possessive statement should have frightened me. Instead, it sent a shameful thrill through my body. I had spent so long being responsible for everything, carrying the weight of survival alone. The idea of someone else shouldering that burden was seductive in a way I hadn't anticipated. After swimming, we were shown to a sun-filled room where lunch had been set up. Lily chattered happily through the meal, seemingly oblivious to the tension between Alessio and me. He answered her endless questions with patience, explaining things simply without talking down to her. I saw glimpses of another man beneath the Mafia boss exterior, one who might have been a good father in another life. As we finished eating, Alessio's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression hardening into the cold mask I recognized from the restaurant. "Excuse me," he said, standing abruptly. "Rosa will take Lily to see the horses." There's something we need to discuss privately, Lena. Rosa appeared as if summoned, offering to show Lily the stables. My daughter bounced with excitement at the prospect of seeing real horses, but I hesitated. It's safe, Alessio assured me quietly. My most trusted men are with the stable staff. No one enters or leaves the property without my knowledge. I reluctantly agreed, watching as Lily skipped away with Rosa, already asking if the horses had names and if she could feed them carrots. Once they were gone, Alessio's demeanor changed completely. We need to move you. Now. What? Why? Antonio has been seen in the area. He's looking for you. Fear twisted in my stomach. How would he know where I am? Information is a commodity in our world. Someone talked. His jaw tightened. The leak has been addressed. I didn't want to know what that meant. Where are you taking us? I have a property in the mountains. Fewer people know about it. You'll be safer there while I deal with this situation. And Lily? She's already been uprooted once. His expression softened slightly. She'll adjust. Children are resilient. And what about her school? My job? Our life? Your life as you knew it is over, Lena, he said bluntly. The moment you warned me about that wine, you became part of this world. The Russos won't stop coming for you now. They believe you have information, or that you're valuable to me. Either way, you're a target. Because of something my father did years ago? Something I know nothing about? Partly. And partly because of this. He pulled out his phone, showing me a photograph that made my blood run cold. It was Antonio, his face twisted with rage, holding a gun to the head of a terrified man I didn't recognize. This was taken yesterday. The man he's threatening is one of my accountants. Antonio tortured him for information about you and your daughter. About your relationship with me. Relationship? I echoed, my voice faint. Antonio believes you've been working with me all along, that your father passed his secrets to you and you've been keeping them for me. He thinks you've been mine for years. That's insane. I didn't even know who you were until yesterday. Men like Antonio see what they want to see. His pride can't accept that you simply recognized a poisoned bottle. It must be a deeper conspiracy. Alessio's hand curled into a fist on the table. And now he knows he has a daughter he abandoned. Ice flooded my veins. You think he'd try to take Lily? I think he'd use her to hurt me. And you. Alessio moved closer, his voice dropping lower. I won't let that happen, Lena. I swear it. The fierce protectiveness in his eyes made my breath catch. This man, who had known us for barely a day, was ready to wage war to keep us safe. The realization was as terrifying as it was exhilarating. Pack whatever you need, he continued. We leave in an hour. I need to talk to Lily. Prepare her. He nodded. Of course. Tell her it's an adventure. Children understand adventures. As I turned to go, his hand caught my wrist, the touch sending electricity up my arm. Lena, there's something else you should know. I steeled myself. What? The accountant. After Antonio finished with him, he killed him. Not quickly. His grip tightened slightly. This isn't a game. Antonio is unstable. Always has been. Now he's desperate too. That makes him more dangerous than you can imagine. I pulled away, unable to process the horror of what he was telling me. I need to find Lily. I'll have her brought back from the stables. I shook my head, needing to move, to do something. No, I'll go myself. I need the air. The estate's grounds were even more impressive in daylight. Manicured gardens, stone pathways winding through stands of ancient trees, a distant view of the city nestled in the valley below. In another context, it would have been breathtakingly beautiful. Now it felt like a gilded stage for a tragedy I hadn't agreed to perform in. I found Lily at the stables, perched on a mounting block, while a gentle-faced young man helped her feed an apple to a glossy chestnut horse. Her laughter floated on the air, so innocent and pure it made my heart ache. Mommy! This is Cinnamon and she likes me, Lily called when she spotted me. I forced a smile, unwilling to taint her joy with my fear. That's wonderful, sweetheart. The stable hand nodded respectfully and moved away, giving us privacy while remaining within sight. Another of Alessio's men, no doubt. Lily, honey, we need to talk about something, I said, helping her down from the mounting block. We're going on a little trip today, to the mountains. Her eyes widened. Like camping? Will Mr. Alessio come too? Yes, he'll be there. But it's not quite like camping. It's another house, like this one, but in a different place. I knelt to her level, brushing a smudge of dirt from her cheek. We might need to stay there for a while. What about school? Ms. Garcia said I'm the best reader in class. We'll figure that out, baby. Maybe you can have lessons at the mountain house. I tried to keep my voice light to shield her from the reality of our situation. She considered this, her small face scrunched in thought. Will there be horses there too? I don't know, but we can ask Alessio. She nodded, apparently satisfied with this answer. I like him. He's not scary like you said. I blinked in confusion. When did I say he was scary? When you were talking to Mrs. Winters on the phone yesterday. You said he was dangerous. I silently cursed my carelessness. Well, sometimes people can seem one way, but be another way when you get to know them better. Like how Daddy seemed nice, but wasn't really? She asked with the devastating directness of childhood. I stared at her, stunned. What do you mean? She shrugged, suddenly interested in her shoes. I heard you crying. After you talked to him on the phone that time. You said he was a liar and you hated him. The memory flooded back, a rare call from Antonio about 2 years ago. Drunk and maudlin, asking to see Lily. I'd refused, and the conversation had devolved into bitter recriminations. I thought Lily had been asleep. Sometimes grown-ups have complicated feelings about each other, I said carefully, but no matter what, I'll always be here for you. And right now, we need to go back to the house and pack for our trip. As we walked hand in hand back through the gardens, a movement at the edge of the property caught my eye. A figure slipped between the trees, too far away to identify clearly, but something about the furtive movement sent alarm bells ringing in my head. Lily, let's walk a little faster, I said, tightening my grip on her hand. Why? I want to look at the flowers. We can look later. Right now we need to... The crack of a gunshot split the air. Instinctively, I dropped to the ground, pulling Lily down with me and covering her body with mine. Mommy, she screamed, her voice high with terror. Stay down, I whispered fiercely, looking around frantically for shelter. More gunshots followed, accompanied by shouts and the sound of running footsteps. Through a gap in the hedge, I glimpsed men in dark suits racing toward the perimeter, weapons drawn. Alessio's security team responding to the threat. I needed to get Lily to safety. The main house was too far, but a small gardener's shed stood about 20 feet away. Keeping low, I scooped Lily into my arms and made a desperate dash for it. Inside, the shed was dim and smelled of soil and fertilizer. I set Lily down on a stack of burlap bags, putting my finger to my lips to signal silence. She nodded, her eyes huge with fear, tears streaming down her cheeks. It's going to be okay, I murmured, holding her close. We're safe here. But as another burst of gunfire erupted outside, I wondered if anywhere would ever truly be safe for us again. We were caught in a war between powerful, dangerous men, and I had no weapons, no influence, nothing to offer except my determination to protect my child at any cost. The shed door burst open and I jerked backward, shielding Lily with my body. Silhouetted in the doorway was a tall figure, gun in hand. Lena? Alessio's voice was tight with urgency. Relief flooded me. We're here. We're okay. He crossed the small space in 2 strides, crouching beside us. There was blood spattered on his white shirt, and a wild look in his eyes that sent a chill through me. Are you hurt? He demanded, his free hand moving over my arm, my face, checking for injuries. No. We're fine. What's happening? Antonio. He brought men. They breached the east section of the wall. His expression was murderous. The situation is being handled, but we need to move now. The helicopter is waiting. Helicopter? I repeated weakly. The fastest way to the mountain property. He holstered his weapon and reached for Lily, who surprised me by going willingly into his arms. Keep your head down and stay close to me. Outside, the gunfire had subsided, but the tension in the air was palpable. Alessio carried Lily with one arm, his other hand firmly on my back as he guided us through a service path I hadn't noticed before. Guards flanked us, their expressions grim, weapons ready. On a helipad at the far end of the property, a sleek black helicopter waited, its blades already spinning. Alessio handed Lily to me as we approached, leaning close to be heard over the roar. "I need to finish this," he shouted. "My pilot will take you to the mountain house. I'll join you tonight." Fear gripped me. "You're not coming with us?" His eyes locked with mine, fierce and determined. "I need to make sure no one follows you, that no one ever threatens you again." Before I could respond, he cupped my face in his hands and kissed me. Hard, desperate, a claiming of sorts that sent heat spiraling through my body despite the danger surrounding us. When he pulled away, his eyes were dark with something that went beyond protection or obligation. "Wait for me," he commanded, helping us into the helicopter. The door closed, and he stepped back as the machine lifted into the air. Through the window, I watched him grow smaller, standing tall and unafraid as his men gathered around him. A king on his battlefield, preparing to slaughter his enemies. As the estate receded and the city spread out beneath us, I held Lily close, wondering what kind of life awaited us in the mountains, and what kind of man would return to us when the blood had been washed from his hands. The helicopter sliced through clouds, carrying us farther from the city with each passing minute. Lily had fallen asleep against my shoulder, exhausted by fear and excitement. I envied her ability to find peace amid chaos, the resilience of childhood that allowed her to escape into dreams while I remained painfully alert, replaying the gunshots, the blood on Alessio's shirt, the fierce intensity of his kiss. My lips still tingled from that contact, unexpected, possessive, leaving me breathless in a way that had nothing to do with fear. I should have been repulsed. Instead, I found myself touching my mouth, remembering the pressure of his, wondering if he would return to us alive. The pilot, a stone-faced man who had introduced himself only as Marco, said little during our journey. Through the headset he'd given me, he occasionally pointed out landmarks below, his voice clinical, detached. I gathered he was one of Alessio's most trusted men, but whether that meant he was a skilled killer or merely discreet, I couldn't tell. "Almost there, ma'am," he finally said, as the helicopter banked toward a mountainside shrouded in pine trees. "Mr. Vitale's property is just ahead." If I had expected another mansion, I was mistaken. The mountain house was a sprawling log cabin perched on the edge of a cliff, its architecture blending seamlessly with the surrounding wilderness. A natural stone chimney rose from its center, and wide windows reflected the late afternoon sunlight. It looked like something from a luxury travel magazine. Beautiful, isolated, and utterly untraceable. We landed on a small helipad set back from the main structure. As the rotors slowed, a middle-aged couple emerged from the house. The woman plump and smiling, the man tall and weathered, both dressed in practical outdoor clothing. "Welcome, Ms. Taylor," the woman called over the fading noise, her accent melodic and vaguely Eastern European. "I am Alina, and this is my husband, Thomas. We are the caretakers here." I shifted Lily in my arms, reluctant to wake her but unable to carry her much farther. Thomas approached with a gentle smile, holding out his arms. "May I help with the little one? You must be exhausted." Something in his grandfatherly demeanor eased my wariness, and I allowed him to take Lily, who stirred but didn't wake, nestling against his broad shoulder. "The master called ahead," Alina explained as she guided us toward the house. "Everything is prepared for you. Food, clothes, anything you need." Inside, the cabin was a stunning blend of rustic charm and modern luxury. Vaulted ceilings, enormous stone fireplace, plush furniture in rich earth tones. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased a breathtaking view of the mountains, valleys, and a lake that glimmered like polished silver in the distance. "Your rooms are this way," Alina said, leading us down a hallway of polished wood. "The little one has her own space connected to yours. The master thought she might like that, her first big girl room." I followed, too overwhelmed to question how Alessio knew that Lily had been begging for her own big girl room for months. Lily's room was a child's fantasy, a handcrafted wooden bed shaped like a boat, bookshelves filled with titles I recognized as classics, along with new ones, a toy chest overflowing with carefully chosen items. A door connected to a larger bedroom with a massive four-poster bed draped in soft linens, a fireplace already lit against the mountain chill, and a bathroom with a deep copper tub and windows that somehow managed to offer both a spectacular view and complete privacy. Tomas laid Lily gently on her new bed. "She'll wake soon, hungry as a bear cub," he said with a smile. "Elena has made her famous stew. It will restore the strength in both of you." Left alone with my sleeping daughter, I sank onto the edge of the bed, finally allowing the events of the past 24 hours to catch up with me. Tears came hot and fast, silent sobs shaking my body as I covered my mouth with my hand to avoid waking Lily. Everything I had known, my apartment with its leaky faucet and creaking floors, my jobs with their grueling hours but comforting familiarity, the carefully constructed rhythm of our modest life, all of it gone, replaced by this surreal existence where helicopter escapes and gunfights were suddenly part of my reality. And at the center of this new world, Alessio Vitale, a man who had killed, who commanded an empire built on violence and fear, who now held my fate and my daughter's in his hands, a man whose kiss had awakened something in me I thought long dead. Desire, yes, but also a dangerous hope. I must have dozed off because Lily's excited voice pulled me from a dreamless sleep. "Mommy, wake up, there are deer outside my window." I blinked, disoriented, to find her bouncing on the edge of my bed, her earlier fear apparently forgotten. The light had changed, golden evening replacing the harsh afternoon sun. "What time is it?" I asked, rubbing my eyes. "Dinner time?" came Elena's voice from the doorway. "The little one has been helping me in the kitchen while you rested." I sat up, embarrassed. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to sleep so long." Elena waved away my apology. "You needed it. Come, eat now." The master called again. He will be here before midnight. A flutter of something. Relief, anticipation, fear, stirred in my chest at the news. "Did he say, is everything okay?" Her expression revealed nothing. "He said to tell you all is handled. You are safe now." The dining room was cozy despite its size, with a long wooden table that could have seated 12, but was set intimately for 3 at one end. Through the windows, the sunset painted the mountains in shades of pink and gold, a spectacular backdrop to our strange new life. Lily chattered happily through dinner, telling me about the kitchen garden Elena had shown her, the deer that came every evening for food, the stars that would be visible later if the clouds cleared. She seemed to have adapted to our situation with the remarkable flexibility of childhood, accepting our new surroundings as an adventure rather than an exile. "Will Mr. Alessio read me a story when he comes?" she asked as I tucked her into bed later, surrounded by new stuffed animals she had already named. The question caught me off guard. I'm not sure, sweetie. He might be very tired. He promised," she said with the absolute certainty of a child who hadn't yet learned that adults often break promises. "At the big house when we saw the horses. He said he would read me the story about the princess who saves herself." I hadn't known about this exchange, and the thought of Alessio Vitale promising bedtime stories to my daughter created a strange ache in my chest. "We'll see, baby. For now, why don't I read to you?" She agreed, and I read until her eyelids grew heavy, and her breathing deepened into sleep. I kissed her forehead, breathing in the sweet scent of her hair, grateful that despite everything, she was safe and seemingly content. Restless, I wandered through the cabin after she fell asleep. Elena and Tomas had retired to their quarters in a separate wing, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I explored the library with its leather-bound volumes and comfortable reading chairs, the state-of-the-art kitchen where copper pots hung above a massive island, the sunroom filled with thriving plants despite the mountain altitude. Eventually, I found myself on the back deck, wrapped in a cashmere throw against the night's chill. The clouds had indeed cleared, revealing a canopy of stars more brilliant than any I'd seen in the city. The air was sharp and clean in my lungs, scented with pine and wood smoke. I wasn't sure how long I'd been sitting there when I heard the sound of an approaching vehicle, the low purr of an expensive engine negotiating the mountain roads. Headlights swept through the trees, and a black SUV appeared on the private drive that wound up to the cabin. My heart rate accelerated. Alessio had arrived. I stayed where I was, watching as he emerged from the vehicle, exchanging words with the driver before the man got back in and drove toward what I assumed was a garage or staff quarters. Even in the dim light, I could see that Alessio had changed clothes. Dark jeans, a black sweater, a leather jacket. No visible blood. No visible weapons either, though I had no doubt he was armed. He paused on the path to the house, his gaze lifting to where I sat on the deck. I couldn't see his expression clearly, but something in his posture shifted when he spotted me. A releasing of tension, perhaps, or a gathering of resolution. He climbed the steps to the deck, moving with the fluid grace I'd noticed at the restaurant that first night, a lifetime ago. Up close, I could see the exhaustion in his face, the shadow of stubble on his jaw, a small cut above his eyebrow that hadn't been there when we parted. "You're still awake," he said, his voice husky with fatigue. "I couldn't sleep," I admitted, not knowing what happened after we left. He sat beside me on the wide bench, close enough that I could feel the heat of his body, smell the winter cold clinging to his clothes mingled with that same spiced cologne. "Antonio is dead," he said simply, watching my face for a reaction. I felt nothing. No grief for the man who had abandoned me pregnant and alone, no horror at the confirmation of violence. Just a hollow acceptance, as if I'd known all along this would be the outcome. "Did you kill him?" I asked, my voice steady. "Does it matter?" "I don't know," I answered truthfully. "Maybe it should." He was silent for a moment, his gaze on the distant mountains. "He died fighting. Not by my hand directly, but on my orders. Does that make me less culpable in your eyes?" "No," I said, "but I appreciate your honesty, always," he promised, turning to face me fully. "I will never lie to you, Lena, even when the truth is ugly." "And is it ugly?" His laugh held no humor. "Parts of it. Antonio wasn't working alone. The Russos had promised him a significant position if he delivered you and the information they believe you have." "But I don't have any information," I insisted. "I don't know anything about my father's records or what he was involved in." "I believe you," he said, surprising me. "But the Russos don't. And with Antonio dead, they'll be even more convinced you're valuable to me." "Am I?" The question slipped out, vulnerability making me reckless. His eyes darkened, and he reached out to brush a strand of hair from my face, his fingers lingering against my cheek. "More than you know." The air between us charged with tension that had little to do with danger and everything to do with the pull I'd felt since that first moment in the restaurant when our eyes met. I should have moved away. Instead, I found myself leaning into his touch. "Why?" I whispered. "You don't know me. Not really." "I know enough," he said, his voice dropping lower. "I know you're fierce in your protection of those you love. I know you have an innate sense of right and wrong that transcends conventional morality. I know you've been fighting alone for too long." His thumb traced my lower lip, sending sparks of sensation through my body. "And I know I want you in ways I haven't wanted anyone in a very long time." I closed my eyes, overwhelmed by his intensity, by my own responding desire. "This is insane. And I'm a man who takes what he wants," he finished for me. "And you're a woman who has spent her life giving to others, never taking for herself." His hand slid to the nape of my neck, fingers threading through my hair. "Take something for yourself, Lena. Take me." When his lips met mine this time, it wasn't the desperate claim of a man heading into battle. It was deliberate, questioning, giving me the choice he claimed to be taking away. I hesitated only a moment before answering, my mouth opening under his, my hands finding their way to his chest, feeling the solid strength of him through the soft material of his sweater. He kissed like he did everything else, with absolute focus and expertise, drawing responses from my body I hadn't known were possible. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard, and I could feel the rapid beat of his heart under my palm. "Lily asked if you'd read her a story," I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. "She said you promised." A genuine smile transformed his face, softening the hard edges. "I did promise, though I imagine she's asleep by now." "She is, but she'll hold you to it tomorrow. I keep my promises, Lena." His expression grew serious again. "All of them. I promise to keep you both safe, and I will. Whatever it takes." "What happens now?" I asked, needing to understand what future we were facing. He sighed, leaning back, but keeping me close with an arm around my shoulders. "Antonio is dead. But the threat isn't over. The Russos believe your father hid evidence that could destroy them. Financial records, names, accounts. Until we can prove that information is lost or doesn't exist, they'll keep coming. So we're trapped here? For how long? Not trapped, he corrected. Protected, and not just here. I have properties around the world, places where you and Lily could start fresh, build a new life. Without you? The question revealed more than I intended. His arm tightened around me. If that's what you want. It wasn't what I wanted, I realized with startling clarity. Despite everything, his violence, his criminal empire, the danger that surrounded him, I didn't want to leave him. The thought terrified me, not just for what it said about my judgment, but for what it meant for Lily's future. I don't know what I want anymore, I admitted. Everything's happened so fast. We have time, he said, pressing a kiss to my temple. For now, you're safe here. Lily seems happy. Let that be enough for tonight. We sat in silence then, watching the stars, his arm around me providing warmth against the mountain chill. It felt surreal. This moment of peace after so much chaos. This closeness with a man who had killed someone hours earlier. You should get some rest, he said eventually. You've been through more in the last 2 days than most people experience in a lifetime. I nodded, suddenly aware of the bone-deep fatigue that had settled into my body. He walked me back into the house, his hand at the small of my back in what was becoming a familiar gesture. At the door to my bedroom, he paused. My room is at the end of the hall if you need anything. His eyes held a promise that sent heat flooding through me despite my exhaustion. Anything at all. Good night, Alessio, I said softly, using his first name deliberately, watching the effect it had on him. A slight darkening of his eyes, a tension in his jaw. Sweet dreams, Lena, he responded, bringing my hand to his lips in an old-fashioned gesture that somehow seemed perfectly natural coming from him. I slipped into my room, checking on Lily, who slept peacefully surrounded by her new toys, before sinking onto the edge of my bed. My body hummed with contradictions, exhaustion and arousal, fear and safety, doubt and certainty. I had warned a Mafia boss not to drink poisoned wine, never imagining it would lead me here. To a mountain retreat, to his arms, to a future I couldn't begin to predict. As I finally gave in to sleep, I wondered if my father had ever imagined this outcome when he taught me about wine, when he became involved with the underworld that now held us in its grip. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new decisions. For tonight, I allowed myself the luxury of not thinking beyond the present moment, the comfort of the bed beneath me, the knowledge that Lily slept safely nearby, and the lingering warmth of Alessio's kiss on my lips. In the morning, I would face the reality of our situation. But for now, I surrendered to dreams that, for the first time in years, held more promise than fear. Morning arrived with shafts of golden light streaming through the windows, and the scent of coffee and baking bread wafting through the air. For a moment, I lay still, cataloging sensations, the luxurious softness of the sheets, the distant chirping of birds, the unfamiliar peace of waking without an alarm demanding I rush to my next shift. A quiet knock at the connecting door preceded Lily's entrance, her face bright with excitement. "Mommy, Mr. Alessio is making pancakes shaped like animals. Come see." I sat up, running a hand through my tangled hair. "He's cooking breakfast?" "Uh-huh. He made me a bunny and an elephant. He says he'll make you whatever animal you want." She bounced on the bed, already dressed in new clothes I didn't recognize. Leggings with stars and a soft blue sweater. "Hurry up before they get cold." I dressed quickly in jeans and a cashmere sweater I found in the wardrobe, pausing briefly to study my reflection. The woman in the mirror looked both familiar and strange. The same features, but somehow transformed, as if the external luxury had begun seeping inward, softening the hard edges of exhaustion that had defined me for so long. The domestic scene that greeted me in the kitchen was so incongruous with everything I knew about Alessio Vitale that I stopped in the doorway, momentarily stunned. He stood at the stove, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms dusted with dark hair, flipping pancakes with the casual expertise of someone who had done this many times before. Lily sat at the island counter, swinging her legs and chattering happily as she demolished what did, indeed, appear to be an elephant-shaped pancake. He looked up as I entered, a smile transforming his features from merely handsome to devastating. "Good morning. Coffee?" "Please," I managed, sliding onto a stool beside Lily. "I didn't know Mafia bosses could cook." His smile turned wry as he poured coffee into a mug and added cream, exactly how I took it, though I couldn't remember telling him that. "There's a lot you don't know about me yet." The yet hung in the air between us, a promise or a warning, I wasn't sure which. "Mom, what animal do you want?" Lily asked, maple syrup smeared adorably across one cheek. "Surprise me," I said, accepting the coffee from Alessio, our fingers brushing in a contact that sent warmth spreading up my arm. "A lioness, I think," he said, turning back to the stove. "Fierce and protective." "Where are Alina and Thomas?" I asked, trying to ground myself in practical matters rather than the way his casual domesticity was affecting me. "They've gone to town for supplies. We're quite isolated here, but there's a small village about an hour's drive down the mountain." He slid a perfectly formed lioness-shaped pancake onto a plate and placed it before me. "They'll be back this evening." The implication was clear. We were alone, just the three of us, in this beautiful mountain hideaway. "Lily," Alessio said, cleaning up the cooking implements with efficient movements. "Would you like to see something special after breakfast? There's a meadow not far from here where deer come to feed in the mornings." "Real deer?" she gasped, eyes wide with wonder. "Can we go right now?" He laughed, the sound rich and genuine. "Finish your breakfast first, little one. The deer will wait for us." The easy way he interacted with my daughter continued to surprise me. There was none of the awkwardness adults often displayed with children, no talking down to her or artificial enthusiasm. He treated her with the same direct respect he showed me, and she responded to it with immediate trust. After breakfast, we bundled up against the morning chill and followed a path through the pine trees. Alessio led the way, occasionally pointing out animal tracks or interesting plants to Lily, who absorbed every word with rapt attention. I trailed slightly behind, watching them together with a confusing mixture of emotions. The meadow, when we reached it, took my breath away. A perfect expanse of green dotted with wildflowers, surrounded by towering pines, with mountains rising majestically beyond. True to Alessio's promise, a small herd of deer grazed at the far edge, their graceful forms moving slowly through the tall grass. "Stay very quiet," he whispered, crouching down to Lily's level and pointing. "If we're still enough, they might come closer." We stood in silence, Lily's small hand in mine, watching as the deer lifted their heads, sensing our presence. For a moment, I thought they might flee, but something about our stillness reassured them, and they resumed their grazing, gradually moving in our direction. "This is the best day ever," Lily whispered, her face alight with wonder as a young fawn ventured closer than the others, its spotted coat gleaming in the morning sun. I glanced at Alessio, finding him watching not the deer but us, his expression unguarded in a way I hadn't seen before. There was longing there, and something deeper that made my heart constrict painfully in my chest. Eventually the deer moved on, disappearing into the forest on the meadow's far side. Lily immediately began recounting every detail of the encounter, her excitement bubbling over into rapid-fire questions about deer, forests, and whether we could come back tomorrow to see them again. "Perhaps," Alessio said, his hand coming to rest lightly on my back as we started down the path toward the cabin. "But this afternoon, I thought we might drive to the village. There's a small bookstore there that I think you both would enjoy." "Can I get my own book?" Lily asked, bouncing ahead of us on the path. "You can get as many books as you like," he promised, his generosity so casual it made me uncomfortable. "Alessio," I said quietly, ensuring Lily was far enough ahead not to hear. "You don't have to buy her things. You've done enough already." He stopped, turning to face me fully. "It's not an obligation, Lena. It's a pleasure." His hand reached up to brush a strand of hair from my face, the gesture becoming familiar between us. "When was the last time you allowed someone to do something nice for you without feeling you needed to repay it?" The question hit harder than I expected, exposing a truth I hadn't fully acknowledged even to myself. I had been so fiercely independent for so long, so determined to prove I could manage alone after Antonio's betrayal, that accepting help had come to feel like failure. I don't remember, I admitted. Something like satisfaction flickered in his eyes. Then it's long overdue. We walked the rest of the way in comfortable silence, Lily darting ahead to examine interesting stones or particularly dramatic trees, calling back for us to hurry and see her discoveries. As we approached the cabin, however, I noticed Alessio's demeanor shift subtly. A new alertness in his posture, his eyes scanning the surroundings with practiced efficiency. It was a stark reminder of who he was, of the danger that had brought us here. What is it? I asked, instinctively moving closer to Lily. Nothing, he said, though his hand had moved to his side where I suspected a weapon was concealed beneath his jacket. Just a habit. I never approach any property without checking it first. Inside, he excused himself to make a phone call, leaving Lily and me to prepare for our trip to the village. As I helped her wash up, I could hear the low murmur of his voice from the study. Not the words, but the tone, which had shifted from the warmth he'd shown us all morning to something harder, more commanding. When he rejoined us, he was back to the man who had made animal pancakes, though I noticed he now wore a jacket that could easily conceal a gun, and his eyes held a wariness that hadn't been there in the meadow. The drive to the village was breathtaking. Winding mountain roads with spectacular views of valleys and distant peaks. The trees beginning to show the first hints of autumn color. Alessio drove with the same confident precision he seemed to bring to everything. One hand resting casually on the wheel, the other occasionally reaching across to touch my knee or hand, each contact sending a ripple of awareness through me. The village itself was like something from a postcard. Stone buildings with window boxes still bright with late summer flowers, a central square with a fountain, small shops with hand-painted signs. People nodded respectfully to Alessio as we passed, suggesting he was a known figure here, despite his claims of isolation. The bookstore was exactly as he'd described, small but well curated, with comfortable chairs and the warm, comforting scent of paper and binding glue. The elderly owner greeted Alessio by name, his smile genuine as he was introduced to Lily and me. "Your daughter is beautiful," the man said to Alessio in accented English, misunderstanding our relationship. "She has your spirit in her eyes." I opened my mouth to correct him, but Alessio's hand at the small of my back stopped me. "Thank you, Joseph," he said simply, before guiding us toward the children's section. "You didn't correct him," I murmured when Lily was out of earshot, absorbed in examining a shelf of picture books. "It's safer if the people here believe you're my family," he explained, his voice low. "It raises fewer questions." The practicality of it made sense, yet something in me rebelled against the deception. And what happens when we leave, when you send us away somewhere to start fresh? Won't that raise questions too? His eyes darkened. "Is that what you think I want? To send you away? Isn't it?" I challenged. "Once the danger passes, once you've dealt with the Russos, we're not part of your world, Alessio. You became part of my world the moment you warned me about that wine," he said, his voice taking on an edge I hadn't heard since the estate. "Whether you want to be or not, and what if I don't want to be?" The question was a test, though I wasn't sure what answer I was hoping for. His expression softened, his hand coming up to cup my cheek. "Then when this is over, I'll give you whatever you need to build the life you want, wherever you want it. But Lena..." His thumb traced my lower lip, sending a shiver through me. "I think you already know what you want." Before I could respond, Lily bounced up to us, arms full of books. "I found so many good ones. Can I get them all? You said as many as I want." The moment broken, Alessio turned his attention to her, examining each selection with serious consideration, asking her questions about why she'd chosen them, treating her opinions with genuine interest. We left the bookstore with a stack of books for Lily, and, to my surprise, several for me as well, titles Alessio had selected based on fragments of conversation we'd had, revealing an attentiveness that was both flattering and slightly unnerving. As we walked through the village square toward a small cafe where Alessio suggested we have lunch, he kept Lily and me close, his vigilance never entirely absent despite his relaxed demeanor. I was beginning to recognize the signs, the way his eyes continuously scanned our surroundings, how he positioned himself slightly ahead of us when approaching corners, the The subtle nod to men I now realized were his security detail, positioned discreetly throughout the village. We were halfway across the square when Alessio suddenly stiffened, his hand tightening on mine. Following his gaze, I saw a man watching us from outside the cafe, middle-aged, expensively dressed, with an air of authority that reminded me uncomfortably of Alessio himself. "Take Lily to that shop," Alessio said quietly, nodding toward a candy store a few doors down. "Stay there until I come for you." "Who is he?" I asked, already drawing Lily closer to my side. "Someone I need to speak with." "It's fine, Lena. Just routine business." But there was a tension in his jaw that belied his reassuring words. Still, I did as he asked, guiding Lily to the candy store with promises of treats if she behaved. Through the shop window, I watched as Alessio approached the man. Their conversation appeared civil, but the rigid set of Alessio's shoulders told me it was anything but friendly. After a few minutes, they were joined by a third man, younger, with the unmistakable bulge of a weapon beneath his jacket. My heart began to race. Had the Russos found us already? Was this apparently idyllic village about to become a battleground? But then, something unexpected happened. The older man laughed, clapping Alessio on the shoulder, and the tension visibly drained from both of them. They shook hands before parting, Alessio turning toward the candy store while the others entered the cafe. "Everything okay?" I asked when he joined us, accepting the paper bag of colorful sweets Lily proudly handed him. "Perfect," he said, though his eyes held a calculation that hadn't been there before. "Change of plans, though. We should head back to the cabin. I need to make some calls." The drive back was quieter, Lily eventually dozing in the back seat, clutching her new books even in sleep. I waited until I was certain she wouldn't overhear before turning to Alessio. Who was that man? He kept his eyes on the winding road, but I saw his hands tighten fractionally on the steering wheel. Marco Russo. Antonio's cousin. Ice flooded my veins. "A Russo? Here? And you just talked to him?" "Business is business, Lena. Sometimes even enemies need to negotiate." "Negotiate what?" I demanded, fear making my voice sharper than intended. He glanced at me briefly before returning his attention to the road. "An exchange. Information for security." "What information?" His silence was answer enough. "Me," I realized. "You're negotiating about me, about whatever my father supposedly hid." "It's more complicated than that," he said, his tone maddeningly calm. "Marco believes his uncle was wrong to pursue this vendetta. He wants peace." "And you believe him?" I couldn't keep the incredulity from my voice. "I believe he sees an opportunity. With Antonio dead and his uncle aging, he's positioning himself to take over. He needs allies more than enemies right now. So what does that mean for us, for Lily and me?" We had reached the cabin, the imposing structure appearing through the trees as we rounded the final bend. Alessio pulled the car to a stop, but made no move to get out, turning to face me fully. "It means I might have found a way to end this without further bloodshed. A way for you both to be truly safe." His hand covered mine where it rested on my knee. "If you trust me." "I barely know you," I said, though even to my own ears the protest sounded weak. His smile was faint but genuine. "You know me better than most, Lena. You've seen sides of me few others ever have." It was true, I realized with a jolt. In the span of just a few days, I had seen Alessio Vitale as the feared Mafia boss, as the ruthless protector, as the surprisingly gentle man who made animal-shaped pancakes, and discussed children's books with utter seriousness. Somehow, all of these versions seemed equally authentic, equally true. "What do you need from me?" I asked finally. "Tonight, after Lily's asleep, we need to talk. There are things you should know, about your father, about what he was really involved in, things that might help us find what the Russos are looking for, even if you don't realize you know it." The intensity in his gaze made my breath catch. "And if we find it, what then?" "Then we negotiate from a position of strength. We ensure your safety, permanently." His thumb traced circles on the back of my hand. "And then we talk about what comes next. For all of us." The implication hung between us, heavy with possibility. Before I could respond, Lily stirred in the back seat, her sleepy voice breaking the moment. "Are we home? Can I show Alina my new books?" "Home." The word echoed in my mind as we exited the car and walked toward the cabin. Could this place, any place with Alessio, ever truly be home for us? The rest of the day passed in a blur of domestic normalcy that felt surreal given the morning's revelations. Alina and Thomas returned, delighted with Lily's excitement over her books. Alessio disappeared into his study for several hours, emerging only for dinner, where he was quieter than he had been at breakfast. His mind clearly elsewhere despite his efforts to engage with Lily's stories. After I'd tucked Lily in, reading one of her new books until she drifted off, I found Alessio waiting in the great room, standing by the massive windows that overlooked the now dark mountains. A fire crackled in the stone hearth, and 2 glasses of wine sat on the coffee table before the leather sofa. "She's asleep?" he asked as I approached. Out like a light. All the excitement wore her out. He nodded, gesturing to the wine. "I thought we could use this conversation." I accepted the glass he offered, noting the deep ruby color of the liquid. "Not poisoned, I hope," I said, attempting humor to mask my nervousness. "I would never waste good wine on poison," he replied, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Sit with me, Lena. What I have to tell you, it won't be easy to hear." We settled on the sofa, closer than necessary, the warmth of his thigh against mine both comforting and distracting. He took a moment, swirling the wine in his glass, organizing his thoughts. "Your father wasn't just laundering money," he began finally. "He was a record keeper for multiple families. The Russos, yes, but others too, including mine." I nearly choked on my wine. "My father worked for you?" "Not directly. He worked for my father, before I took over the business. He was trusted by everyone because he had no allegiance to any single family. He was neutral territory, so to speak." "I don't understand." "My father was a sommelier. He loved wine, teaching people about it. That wasn't just a cover." Alessio's expression softened. "No, that was real. His passion for wine was genuine, but it also made him perfect for the role. He traveled to vineyards around the world, met with suppliers, had legitimate reasons to handle large sums of cash. And he kept impeccable records." I set down my glass, my hand suddenly unsteady. "Records of what exactly?" "Everything. Money movements, names, accounts, the kind of information that could bring down entire organizations if it fell into the wrong hands." His eyes met mine, serious and intent. "The kind of information that makes people kill to protect it." "But I don't have any of that information," I insisted. "If I did, don't you think I would have used it by now? To get out of poverty? To give Lily a better life? You might have it without knowing it," he said gently. "Your father was clever. When he sensed danger, he wouldn't have left such information somewhere obvious. He would have hidden it in plain sight, perhaps encoded it in something personal, something only you would recognize." A memory surfaced suddenly. My father showing me a beautiful bottle of wine on my 18th birthday, explaining its history, its uniqueness. "There's more to this bottle than meets the eye, Lena," he had said. "Someday you'll understand." I had assumed he was speaking metaphorically about the complexity of the wine itself. But what if... "There was a bottle," I said slowly. "A very expensive one. He showed it to me once, said it was special." Alessio leaned forward, his eyes suddenly intent. "Do you remember what kind? The vineyard? The year?" I closed my eyes, trying to recall details from so long ago. "It was Italian. From Piedmont, I think. A Barolo or Barbaresco. He kept it in a special case in his study." "And after his death? What happened to it?" "I don't know," I admitted. There were so many details to handle after the accident. The apartment had to be cleared out quickly because I couldn't afford the rent. Most of his things went into storage, but I had to sell a lot of it just to get by. "The storage facility," Alessio said, already reaching for his phone. "Where is it?" "Downtown, near the river. Safe-keep storage." "But Alessio, I haven't paid the fees in over a year. They probably auctioned everything off by now." He was already dialing, turning away slightly as he spoke rapidly in Italian to whoever had answered. After a brief conversation, he ended the call and turned back to me, a new energy in his movements. "My people will check the facility records, track down what happened to your father's belongings." He took my hands in his grip warm and reassuring. "This could be it, Lena, the key to ending all of this." "And if it is?" I asked, returning to my earlier question. What happens then? He brought one of my hands to his lips, pressing a kiss to my palm that sent heat spiraling through me. Then you have a choice to make about what kind of life you want, about who you want in that life. The implication was clear, and for the first time, I allowed myself to truly consider it. A future with Alessio Vitale, not as his protected asset or grateful recipient of his charity, but as something more, something equal in its own way. "And what if I choose you?" I whispered, the words slipping out before I could reconsider them. "What does that mean for Lily? For me?" "It means safety, security, never wanting for anything material again." His eyes held mine, unflinching. "It also means accepting parts of my life you may find difficult. I won't insult you by pretending I'll change completely." His honesty was both terrifying and refreshing. "And if I can't accept those parts? Then I'll set you up somewhere far from here, somewhere the Russos will never find you. You and Lily can start fresh, with new identities, new opportunities, and I'll—" He paused, a flash of something like pain crossing his features. "I'll let you go." The thought of never seeing him again created an ache in my chest I wasn't prepared for. In the space of just a few days, he had become essential somehow. His strength, his unexpected tenderness, the way he looked at me as if I were something precious rather than a struggling single mother, barely keeping her head above water. "I need time," I said, echoing my response from days earlier when he'd first suggested I stay with him. "This is all happening so fast. We have time," he assured me, though something in his tone suggested otherwise. "For tonight, just stay with me. Here, by the fire." He opened his arm in invitation, and I found myself moving into his embrace, my head resting against his chest where I could hear the steady beat of his heart. We sat in silence for a long time, watching the flames dance in the hearth, his fingers gently stroking my hair. "Lily asked if you're going to be her new daddy," I said finally, feeling him tense beneath my cheek. "This morning, while you were making pancakes. She whispered it to me." "And what did you tell her?" His voice was carefully neutral. "I told her that grown-up relationships are complicated, that we're all still getting to know each other." He was quiet for a moment, a diplomatic answer, the only one I could give, I said, tilting my head to look up at him. "I don't make promises to her I can't keep." His eyes, dark and serious in the firelight, held mine. "I don't make promises I can't keep either, Lena. Remember that." The weight of his words settled over me as he lowered his mouth to mine, the kiss gentle at first, then deepening as I responded, my hands sliding up to his shoulders, drawing him closer. Unlike our previous kisses, this one held no urgency, no desperate edge, just a slow, thorough exploration, as if we had all the time in the world. When we finally broke apart, both breathing harder, I saw in his eyes the same desire that coursed through me, tempered with a restraint I hadn't expected. "We should stop," he said, though his hand remained at my waist, thumb tracing circles against my ribs. "Not because I want to, but because when this happens between us, and it will happen, Lena, I want you to be completely certain. No doubts, no fears clouding your decision." His consideration, when he could so easily have taken advantage of my confused emotions, only made me want him more. But I nodded, acknowledging the wisdom in his restraint. "Thank you," I whispered, pressing one last kiss to his jaw before standing. "Good night, Alessio." "Sweet dreams, Lena," he replied, remaining by the fire as I made my way to my bedroom. Inside, I checked on Lily, smiling at the sight of her surrounded by her new books even in sleep, before preparing for bed myself. As I slipped beneath the luxurious sheets, I couldn't help replaying everything Alessio had told me about my father's secret life, about the bottle that might hold the key to our freedom, about the choice that awaited me once this was all over. I had warned a Mafia boss not to drink poisoned wine, never imagining it would lead to this crossroads, a choice between walking away from him forever or embracing a life I could never have envisioned for myself. A life with danger at its edges, yes, but also with protection, security, and a kind of passionate connection I had thought lost to me after Antonio's betrayal. As sleep finally claimed me, one truth remained clear amid the swirling uncertainty. Whatever choice I made would reshape Lily's life and mine forever. And for the first time since becoming a mother, I found myself considering my own desires alongside my daughter's needs, wondering if perhaps they might lead us to the same destination, a future with Alessio Vitale.